Test benches. They're made to make swapping hardware in and out of your system a simple and painless process, as well as give you uninhibited access to all of your components. But they've always been designed to be a stationary object. I mean, who would want to be toting around an open system anywhere, right? Well, the good folks over at HWBot, Overclocking TV, and Streetcom believed that the extreme overclocker needed a more effective solution to tote around their setups, as opposed to utilizing a motherboard box everywhere, which is where the Open Benchtable BC1 comes in. It aims to provide a functional and portable test bench experience to make traveling simple for extreme overclockers everywhere, and also for dudes who like to completely rebuild their system at LAN parties. Let's see how well the BC1 does at accomplishing its purposes. Before we get into the minutiae of the test bench itself, I want to make it clear that the BC1 is still in development. And what I have is a prototype that I was able to win at Rage Cape Town at HWBot's amateur overclocking competition. So any criticism I level against the BC1 may not be valid when the final product does indeed come to market. But to start off with the form factor, since this is what the BC1 is all about, it was made with portability in mind. There's a carrying handle at the top that makes it simple to tote around, and then all of the parts and accessories that you need for setting up the bench are tucked away behind a plastic housing in the middle of the bench that only adds an additional few millimeters of girth. However, while I was initially impressed at the convenience of housing the accessories and parts behind the plastic, that feeling quickly turned to disappointment after my BC1 fell over just after getting this shot. The force of that impact wasn't particularly large, but rather it hit at an odd angle and led to the plastic cracking and the screws that were keeping everything in place while they came out. And I'm not sure, because of that incident, how well the plastic will hold up when traveling for extreme overclockers, especially if it's put in checked luggage, considering how well baggage handlers are known for treating baggage. It's definitely a concern on my end that the plastic on the BC1 won't be able to hold up over time, which then makes keeping all of the accessories and parts in one place an additional hassle that they were aiming to try to remove. But moving on from the plastic housing, the setup of the BC1 is rather simple. Although I did struggle a bit with figuring out the proper alignment of certain parts and where to mount the drives initially. But after spending some time undoing my progress and readjusting things, it was a nearly painless process. But am I even supposed to mount that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it's not gonna work. I don't even know what those slots are for. What is that? Poop. Can I do this? Like, where's the hard drive supposed to go? I don't even understand. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to, but I can. What do I do now? Nope, those don't line up. Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase. Dang it. See this? I wish that I had at least an image of what the completed product was supposed to look like, at least on my first pass, but I've been told that a small eco-friendly manual will ship with the consumer BC1, so you won't have to worry about that. But for the purposes of this video, I'll document the setup process here. You start by unscrewing the plastic panel from the front of the product. Mine already had the added bonus of being completely removed. You then install the U-shaped brackets, which are the legs, but make sure the holes on the side of the leg have the indented side facing out. Then install all of your motherboard standoffs, then your motherboard, and screw them in with the nylon screws. And for GPU installation, you need to take 3 of the long standoffs and mount them one on top of the other, then install them in place on the side of the table. Your drives are supposed to be mounted on the underside of the table with the screws going in the indented portion on the top. Opposite the drives, you can mount the power supply with the aforementioned indented holes in the side of the leg. Then you have your fully assembled table. It's a simple setup, but I do have a few issues that I'd like to address here. The first being that all of the screws required a Phillips head screwdriver except for the motherboard screws, which required a standard flathead. I definitely prefer a single type of screw socket, that way I wouldn't have to use 2 separate tools to install the system. The second issue is that when I install the GPU bracket supports, the one on the left doesn't provide enough space for me to install my HDMI cable for my GPU. This may be particular to only certain GPUs or certain HDMI cables, but I couldn't have this support installed when I wanted to use the HDMI output on my graphics card. And thirdly, while the aluminum chassis was chosen because of its high endurance per weight ratio, it has unfortunately become slightly warped and damaged. I'm not reckless with my computer parts, although I'm not necessarily providing a lot of evidence to the contrary in this video, but the travel readiness of the BC1 doesn't seem like it'll be able to stand the test of time from abusive owners or just general travel wear. And then a final point that's not necessarily an issue, but a point that I find worth mentioning. The power supply, when installed on the BC1, prevents access from underneath the table to work with the CPU cooler's backplate. But even with the PSU removed, there's not much space under the motherboard and then above the test bench to be able to adjust and work with the backplate. I was hoping to use this test bench for most of my reviews going forward, but with how much my large hands struggled to install a CPU cooler on this test bench, I had to move my system back into a chassis to be able to swap out coolers more effectively. I know the intended purpose of the BC1 doesn't match up with my intended use case, so I can't fault it here, but I wish the motherboard standoffs were slightly higher to allow me to adjust things more easily. But wrapping things up, the Open Benchtable BC1 is an admirable attempt at producing a diminutive test bench for extreme overclockers. I mean, comparing it to the Lian Li test bench I've used previously shows just how much volume the BC1 actually saves. There's clearly been a lot of time and engineering poured into this project to get it to where it is now. The way the legs fit so neatly into the folded up form, and the space-saving idea of using 3 smaller standoffs for the GPU support so that all of them fit neatly inside the packaging, those ideas are so ingenious that they seem blatantly obvious now that they've been accomplished. I'm thoroughly impressed with what HWBot, OCTV, and Streacom have been able to put together here. I do have some qualms about the durability of the BC1, but I'm also sure that they're putting it through its paces on the HWBot World Tour with all of the traveling that they've been doing with it. And it's helpful to see that they're also listening to feedback. They've already implemented some non-slip pads for future iterations on the bottom of the test bench because of complaints that it slid around too easily, but that wasn't an issue that I necessarily encountered on the surfaces that I put the BC1 on. But overall, I appreciate where the Open Benchtable is going, and definitely think it's the best solution out on the market right now, even if it's not perfect. But what do you guys think? What would you like to see implemented on a portable test bench? Does the BC1 have all of the right ideas? Let me know down in the comments section below. I'll be sure to check out your responses, and I'm sure that they're listening and will take your feedback into consideration. So that's it for this video. If you're looking to watch more, you should check out the after movie that OCTV put together for the HWBot World Tour stop in Cape Town. Yours truly plays a supporting role. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.
Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase. Dang. Hakuna Matata. Ain't no passing craze. It means no worries. As long as it's my name. It means no worries for the rest of your days. Well, it's all problem free. Hegemony. Hakuna Tomato. Hakuna Tomato. Hakuna Tomato. Hakuna Tomato.